old classic dirtbags comes to Phoenix. How cool is it that they've brought this here for the Wildcats fans in Phoenix and just bring that history from Tucson over here?
I think it's amazing. I think, dirtbags in Tucson is such a part of every person and basically every student that's ever gone to the University of Arizona. And it's kind of a special place. I mean, a lot of people grew up there at dirtbags, and just had this incredible experience. And so it's been fun to know that this is up here, and, as part of that legacy.
You have so much background, Mountain West Coach of the Year. You study a lot, coached under Dick Tomey. How does that experience kind of allow you to analyze the past, but just prepare you for the future in the best ways possible?
Well, I think, every coach is a product of the people that they've been around. And I've been lucky. I've been around a lot of really good head coaches. Obviously, for the Arizona people, Dick Tomey, is obviously the most notable one. But everybody adds value to your process. Sometimes it's you learn what you don't want to do. Sometimes you learn what you do want to do. But I'm grateful for all of them. Rich Ellerson, Mike Riley, Dick Tomey, Mike McIntyre, Gary Anderson. I mean, there's a lot of guys that really poured into me and have been friends and mentors along the way on my journey. So it's been, I'm free, very appreciative of them.
Love that. Every team kind of deals with injuries, no matter who they are. How has kind of stronger NIL programs maybe attracted players to even take backup roles where some schools may find that when it comes to injuries, they lack a little bit of depth, and that it comes down to this NIL programs?
I think lots of times, maybe some people aren't always truthful about when they're recruiting those kids. Like a lot of the times when players are going, they might be getting a bigger payday, but they don't know that they're going for a backup role, right? So I think some of that transparency isn't always there. And in some places, I'm sure it is. Some people, like anybody else, if someone's going to offer you an extra $200,000, a lot of people would leave their job, right? And so for these student athletes that are now in this position for the first time ever, them having to navigate that space and figure out what's more important, the opportunity to play every down or the opportunity to make an extra $100,000. If the goal is to be an NFL player, I think the opportunity is more valuable than that money right now, because they want to be an NFL player, and you got to play in the games. You need reps in the games to do that. You got to develop as a player to do it. And the best way to do that is by playing.
Speaking of the NFL, T-Mac drafted to the Carolina Panthers at the 8th pick. How do you think his big playability, leadership, and the way he can kind of sink his hips, slant, and change directions on those sharp breaking routes, how do you think that will kind of help him find those windows in the NFL?
I think T-Mac's going to be a great player in the NFL. He is a very, very rare combination of size, speed, athleticism, like what you mentioned, his ability. I'm a receiver coach by trade. And so, I've coached a lot of really good receivers. I've been lucky that way. Some of them from, Phoenix or from this area, but just his ability to, with his 220-pound frame, to sink and separate and accelerate and create space. Because in the NFL, everybody's so fast, everybody's so athletic. Those windows are so tight for quarterbacks to fit balls in. So the guys that create space versus man coverage are the ones that make the big plays. And then he also has incredible catch radius and really strong hands. And so to me, in this draft, he was the can't miss receiver in this draft.
Talk about size and strength. Miami trades up for Jonah. The GM of Miami is praising his size and strength. How do you think, a team like Miami is going to really appreciate that trade up to go get Jonah?
So Jonah Savannah is a really special young man, right? As we went through the challenges we were going through in our first year at Arizona, Big Jonah willingly was like, okay, I'll play left tackle. Where do you need me to play? Even though he hadn't played it for a long time, he was just willing to do whatever it took to help the team. And so I think the Dolphins are getting a player who is going to be team first all the time. He's a great human being. He's a super hard worker. He practiced every day. He never missed practice. He was never late. Super hard worker. So he brings all of those really great kind of core values to their organization, and they're going to love him. He's also a great human being, so in that locker room with that team, he's going to bring a brotherhood and a great spirit to that locker room. They're going to love him in Miami.
You guys have a lot of new transfers. Chris Hudson comes over from Washington State. He's expected to be that new wide receiver one with his speed and route running precision. Trey Spivey comes in from Kansas State and Luke Weisson from New Mexico. How do you think with the new offensive four there, how he's going to change the offensive approach and kind of like formation variations, tempo changes, and also incorporating that running game with Marty coming in from Texas State?
I think we feel really good about the guys we've added, from the portal. And when you think about, the receiver position, one of the things that we didn't have quite enough of last year is we didn't have enough speed opposite of T-Mac. And so I think, with the additions of the players you mentioned, I really think Chris Hudson is a dynamic player. He's great with the ball in his hand. He's a fantastic route runner. He does have speed and acceleration and ability to create space. It's going to be a lot of fun. Luke Weisholm can really run, and we saw that firsthand because he played against us week one and played really well against us. And then Trey Spivey is a big body, obviously a Phoenix kid. We're really happy to get him back in the fold at the U of A. And so I think when I think of that receiver position and how you build out that offense side of the ball, like I don't want all those pieces to look the same. I want them to be different. You know what I mean? So that we can attack defenses in different ways. And I know Coach Daggy, our new offensive coordinator, feels that way. And when you combine that with the running back room, which we feel like we've really, really added some really good players to that room, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I think it's going to be really explosive. Coach Daggy's an aggressive guy. You're going to see tempo changes. You're going to see motion shifts and all kinds of fun. And Noah Fafita is really leaning into that with Coach Daggy. So the relationship there is really strong.
You also got a couple new coaches and a new DL coach as well. Kind of assessing that front seven and addressing how to improve on just even the mechanics going forward. How is that going to be so, massive for this Arizona Wildcats team?
Shoot. Coach Salavea, I mean, he's one of the best defensive linemen to ever play at the U of A. And he just has incredible energy. He's super intense. Like, you should see him in the practice environment. He's sweating as hard as the players are, he's just got his sweat's pouring off him because he's so intense and he's so into it. And I think the energy he brings to that front is going to be really valuable for us. I also think we've added some good pieces to that front from the portal. So when you see all those things come together, along with Coach Gonzalez, our defense coordinator, and what he's going to do schematically, I think people are going to love what we do on defense.
And last question, given the challenges last season and transition with everything, how do you plan to restore the player confidence and reestablish a competitive identity for this Arizona Wildcats team moving forward?
That starts with the offseason. That starts with our process and how hard we're working together. And I think the best indication of that is that you just saw like those players not leave at the end of spring practice. I think that post-spring practice portal was not a devastating thing for us. We were actually in a great spot at the end of spring practice portal. And so I think that gives me the best indication that we're moving the right direction with this team, the work they're putting in together, how committed they are to each other with the new additions of players and the new additions on the coaching staff. We love where we're at. We love where we're going. And our fans are going to love what Arizona football looks like in the fall.